Hey, welcome to a new video. Pelican Bay in California is the state's iconic supermax, notorious for the sealed-off security housing unit where people spent years in near-permanent isolation. After the 2011/2013 hunger strikes in Ashker v. Brown, California settled in 2015 and ended indefinite SHU placement based solely on gang labels. That move shifted hundreds of long-term isolates toward less restrictive settings. Though segregation still exists for specific security criteria, Pelican Bay remains strict: double fences, perimeter sensors, tightly controlled movement, and heavily monitored contact. Supporters see it as a tool against violence and gang command. Critics fear lasting mental harm without sufficient care and activity. The case shows how policy can pivot through a mix of litigation, public pressure, and data on the damage of prolonged isolation. Pelican Bay is less an eternal shoe now and more a test. Can a supermax stay safe with less harmful isolation and credible re-entry? The outcome shapes not only the lives inside, but the course of California's entire prison system.
Are you new to this channel? Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And before we start, also like the video.
West of Istanbul lies the Marmara Prison Complex, commonly called Silivri. One of Europe's largest prison campuses, it housed, especially after the 2016 coup attempt, tens of thousands of suspects, including journalists, activists, and lawyers. Courtrooms sit on the grounds so mass trials can be held inside the perimeter. Rights groups report lengthy pre-trial detention, restricted access to lawyers and healthcare, and overcrowding, made especially visible during COVID. Silivri isn't a regular facility so much as the knot where state security, media cases, and opposition cases intersect. Testimonies describe cramped dorms, shifting visitation rules, and the risk of disciplinary penalties for complaints. Ankara points to modern infrastructure: medical posts, separate units, and on-site courts for faster proceedings. In practice, transparency is the chronic weak point. Independent monitoring is limited, and hard data on occupancy and care are scarce. Silivri has become a symbol of the broader tension between security and the rule of law. Plenty of capacity in a tight regime, but little convincing evidence that scale aligns with consistent rights safeguards. Southeast of Tehran, Qarchak is often cited by activists as proof that the system fails women first. The sprawling desert edge complex is described as overcrowded, with dormitory halls, sewage leaks, and outbreaks of infectious disease. Political prisoners are frequently housed with violent offenders, heightening risk and fear. Family visits and attorney contact are erratic. Some women wait weeks for a brief phone call, and medical referrals are denied or delayed. Former detainees report pepper spray raids, punishment cells without ventilation, and the withholding of basic hygiene products. Its location makes everything worse. Qarchak is costly and time-consuming to reach, and independent monitors rarely get in. Officials periodically announce improvements, from fresh paint and new rules to a small clinic, yet rights groups say core problems persist: unsafe water, inadequate care, and reprisals after complaints. In Iranian media, Qarchak often stands for bureaucratic disappearance, where activists, journalists, students, and suspects vanish into procedural fog. Public outcry around high-profile arrests sometimes sparks minor fixes, but once attention fades, the black hole returns. Opened under British administration, Kiri was designed for far fewer people than it holds today. As Lagos exploded in size, the facility became a catch basin for Nigeria's toughest justice problems: prolonged pretrial detention, underfunding, and chronic overcrowding. Pretrial wings are bursting. Advocates say many wait months or years, sometimes longer than the maximum sentence. NGOS documents scarce medical care, poor sanitation, irregular water supply, and cells filled to the brim. Reintegration programs largely exist on paper. There are classes and workshops, but too little staff, materials, and space means only a fraction benefit. Periodic amnesties and backlog days thin numbers temporarily, but new arrests outpace releases. Inside, small wins matter: a spot in a reading class, time with a faith group, a visit from legal aid, a working phone line home. Outside, reformers push alternatives to incarceration and bail procedure reforms. Until those system fixes land, Kiri functions as a pressure valve the justice system can't quite close. Klong Prem in Bangkok's Lat Yau district is an extensive complex with multiple facilities, including Bangkok Remand Prison. It is known for tight security, overcrowding, and a mixed population of Thai and foreign inmates. Journalists and visitors describe packed dormitories, limited daytime activity, and a lively informal economy around phone time and extra food. Policy focuses on order and basic care, but watchdogs note a persistent mismatch between numbers and resources, a structural issue across Thailand. A striking and contested feature is the use of sports, including Muay Thai events, as a reintegration incentive. The publicity is visible, but it changes little about structural crowding and cell density. Recent reporting also highlights how contraband and corruption continue to strain regime integrity and safety. Klong Prem acts as a barometer. Any spike in arrests or case delays translates directly into pressure on space, care, and staffing. Reforms, more alternatives to custody and faster case processing, could ease the load, but require both legislative and budget decisions. Until then, Lat Yao remains a story of volume stress behind heavy fencing. For years, Venezuela's Tacaron prison functioned as the headquarters of Tren de Aragua. Born behind bars, the gang turned entire wings into a command center for extortion, human smuggling, and cross-border crime. In September 2023, security forces finally raided the complex. More than 11,000 personnel found a mini-city behind the walls: a nightclub, pool, casino, even a small zoo, plus weapons depots and motorcycles. Authorities declared victory, but human rights groups said the leadership had fled beforehand and the network continued operating from the shadows. Since then, investigations have mapped Tren de Aragua's transnational footprint across South America: Chile, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, and Bolivia, and along migration routes. Its revenues rely less on drugs than on human smuggling and coercive economies. The United States increased pressure. In July 2024, the Treasury Department labeled the gang a significant transnational criminal organization. In July 2025, sanctions followed against multiple leaders to restrict finances and further isolate the network. Whether that curtails its reach is unclear. Cells adapt quickly, and the brand survives leadership changes. The hard lesson of Tacaron: when the state cedes internal control, a prison can become a criminal incubator that reaches far beyond the fence. A recapture does not automatically dismantle the empire built inside. In Maranhão, Pedrinhas became synonymous with disaster after the 2013 to 2014 unrest. Dozens of fatalities and shocking images shook Brazil and the world. The causes were lethal: overcrowding, understaffing, and rival gangs separated by block, turning every conflict into a head-on collision. When violence flared, it raced through corridors designed for confinement, not for conflict mitigation. Rights groups demanded urgent action, and Brasilia promised investment, transfers, and tighter control. A decade on, there is more oversight: checks, cameras, paperwork, but the system that feeds Pedrinhas has barely changed. Overcrowding persists, pretrial detention is rising, and gang leadership adapts easily to new rules. Inside remains precarious: packed cells, heat, debt, smuggled phones, and the constant calculus of which faction holds which block. For families, visiting day is a lottery: hours of waiting for a few minutes together, always with the fear of lockdowns or bad news. Pedrinhas stands as a warning. If gangs control the cells and guards only the corridors, one spark can ignite an entire wing. Curado in Recife, formerly Aníbal Bruno, is one of Brazil's largest prison complexes and shows how overcrowding amplifies every problem. At its peak, it held nearly twice its design capacity, turning dormitories into disease vectors and yards into flashpoints. Years of litigation forced regional human rights measures and on-site inspections, with emergency fixes like additional medical posts, stricter searches, and transfers. Pressure eased slightly, but core issues remained and returned whenever measures relaxed or numbers rose. Too many people and too few staff mean collapsing hygiene, free-flowing contraband, and informal bosses filling the gaps. NGOs continue to report tuberculosis, scabies, and preventable deaths, plus injuries from fights and improvised weapons. Programs exist but reach few, with long waitlists. Pretrial detention drags on, and classification and parole move slowly. Curado makes it clear that reform by decree rarely sticks and quickly erodes once pressure fades. Without broader changes in pretrial policy, sentencing, and alternatives, the emergency simply shifts from wing to wing. On paper, oversight looks better, but at extreme density, a single failed water tank, clinic delay, or confiscated phone can tip the system back into crisis. Opened in 2016 to replace the 1930-era Kigali Central Prison, the new Nyarugenge facility at Mageragere was meant to add capacity, improve separation, and upgrade sanitation. Official statements and local reporting show the move aimed to break chronic overcrowding and poor hygiene. In Nyanza, Rwanda also built a high-security prison for long sentences and transferred genocide convicts. Yet structural tension remains. When case processing slows or inflow outpaces releases, occupancy climbs. Hygiene, healthcare, and programs then come under renewed strain. Rwanda points to investments in buildings, water and sewage, and work and study programs. But independent, detailed occupancy data are limited publicly. The result, Mageragere, is demonstrably more modern than 1930, yet the system is vulnerable to capacity shocks elsewhere in the country. The classic lesson holds: infrastructure helps, but the pace of justice and alternatives to detention determine whether modernization endures. Built for about 1,500 people, Kinshasa's Makala has for years held far more, forcing daily rationing of basic services. On September 2, 2024, pressure boiled over when an attempted breakout sparked fires and fighting, leaving at least 129 dead and many injured. In the chaos, women were especially vulnerable, and reports of sexual violence prompted calls for an independent investigation. The UN Human Rights Chief condemned a dangerous mix of extreme overcrowding, unsanitary conditions, and excessive force to restore order. Afterwards, authorities announced releases to ease pressure and plans for a new facility. The root causes remain: undernutrition, inadequate medical care, and pretrial detention that stretches for months or years. In Makala, time itself becomes punishment. Hearings are postponed, files go missing, and families wait days to deliver a small parcel or speak for a few minutes at a window. With staff overstretched and infrastructure crumbling, informal hierarchies and contraband economies quickly fill the vacuum. Makala is more than a single scandal. It's an X-ray of a system past the breaking point, where any spark can escalate into catastrophe. Number 12, also known as the Chongori Re-Education Camp in North Hamgyong Province, is a forced labor prison for both criminal and political prisoners. Unlike North Korea's lifelong camps, Kyohwa-So facilities technically have end dates, though many die before release due to exhaustion, disease, or starvation. Satellite images and testimonies from the Committee for Human Rights in North Korea reveal prisoners living next to open copper mines with no safety protocols. Inmates suffer from chronic malnutrition, contaminated water, and disease from toxic mine runoff. A strict ranking system determines access to food, healthcare, and visits. Lower-ranked prisoners are punished with solitary confinement in dark cells and extra forced labor. Though called a re-education camp, Chongori is in truth a slow-motion death camp, where people are worked until they collapse, mining copper for export without any external oversight. Rehabilitation is not the goal. Erasure is. The most dangerous and worst of all is La Sabaneta, the national prison of Maracaibo located in Venezuela. You might think that the most dangerous prisons are the ones with maximum security, but what if I told you that there was a prison with no security and supervision and where the inmates were running the place? This was exactly what happened at La Sabaneta prison. There were about 3,700 prisoners, while this place was built for only 700 prisoners. The prison was run by its own inmates for 55 years, until it was closed in 2013. There were raids by the government from time to time, and each time they found large amounts of banned substances and weapons. They even reportedly found a lot of exotic animals once. But now that the prison is closed, plans are being made to reopen it as a museum. Located in Bogotá, La Modelo is Colombia's most violent and chaotic prison, housing about 11,000 inmates, divided into wings for left-wing rebels and right-wing paramilitaries. The central yard has frequently been the scene of deadly unrest, as guards are often unarmed while some inmates possess illegal weapons. On April 27, 2000, over 100 prisoners were killed in a massive conflict between factions, prompting reforms and tighter security. But violence persists. In 2016, after heavy rain, over 100 decomposing bodies were discovered in the sewer system under the prison, triggering global outrage. On March 21, 2020, a riot broke out over COVID fears and overcrowding, resulting in 23 deaths and 83 injuries. La Modelo once had inmate-run restaurants and shops sponsored by groups like FARC, but most were shut down after the 2000 massacre. Even the prison leadership is under threat. In May 2024, director Elmer Fernandez was assassinated by gunmen while driving home. Eiraeiro is Eritrea's most notorious secret site, reportedly built near Gldani around 2003, and seldom seen by the outside world. There are no official tours, no independent oversight, and almost no photos. What is known comes from defectors, bereaved families, journalists, and UN investigations. Accounts describe a compound where prominent prisoners are kept out of sight: journalists, dissidents, and members of the reformist G15. They are held incommunicado for long periods, denied food or medical care, and some are said to have died without bodies or death certificates. In a system without a free press or independent courts, a prison becomes a black hole. Names go in, news rarely comes out. Families live on rumor. The logic is stark: deny, isolate, and wait for memory to fade. Eiraeiro is small compared to mass complexes elsewhere on this list, but it stands as a symbol of authoritarian detention. It shows how information control can be as decisive as bars, closed courts, sealed files, hidden transfers. A country can run a prison that scarcely exists on paper, yet permanently shape lives. Insein Prison in Yangon, built in 1887 under British rule, is Myanmar's main detention center and a symbol of state violence. Originally designed for 5,000 inmates, it held over 15,000 in 2022, including activists, journalists, ethnic minorities, and civilians. Serious illnesses are often ignored until it's too late. Then prisoners are sent to a poorly equipped hospital where many die from complications and unhygienic conditions. Sanitation is minimal. Prisoners wash with shared water bowls, and bucket toilets sometimes require payment. Reports describe beatings, crawling across gravel, and fear-inducing attacks by dogs. Inmates receive no mats, no spare clothes, and no blankets, regardless of heat or rain. Political prisoners are detained without trial, denied lawyers, and subjected to psychological torment. There are accounts of forced confessions, public humiliation, and death notifications withheld from families. Insein isn't just a prison, it's a machine of fear and silence. The Nairobi prison, located in Kenya, is not only overcrowded with over 3,000 inmates in a space designed for only 800 people, but the prison is also known for its cells that are built like cages. In some cases, 12 prisoners had to share a cell with each other where normally only 3 people could fit. In each cell, or rather cage, there are only 2 mattresses without blankets. But the temperature inside is also tremendously warm, so they probably don't need the blankets. There is barely room for them to move, not to mention the smell and garbage. What is most disturbing is that many of the prisoners who have endured these hellish living conditions have not yet been sentenced, and are therefore still in prison for years waiting for the court to hold their trial. Chongori Prison, China's only national-level detention center, is known for holding high-profile political prisoners. Built in the 1950s and still in use today, it enforces a strict hierarchy that dictates food, exercise, medical care, visitation rights, and cell conditions. Lower-ranked prisoners endure harsh conditions, with minimal food, almost no showers, and only 20 minutes of outdoor time per day alone. During the Cultural Revolution, some inmates reportedly went years without bathing, and long-term solitary confinement in cold, dark cells led to serious physical and psychological damage. Political prisoners are forbidden from communicating with each other or the outside world, turning Chongori into a tool of control, not a rehabilitation. Meals reflect social rank: meat, fruit, and milk for the elite, thin gruel and grains for the rest. The system embodies a deliberate strategy of isolation and dehumanization. South of Riyadh, Al-Ha'ir looms large in the kingdom's security landscape. It is the largest facility, run under a strict regime and closely tied to state security cases. Open sources are scarce. Most knowledge comes from families, former detainees, and rights groups. They report isolation, interrogations under terrorism and cyber laws, and care that is delayed or denied. Families often avoid publicity for fear that complaints could jeopardize visits or case progress. The record becomes a mosaic of hearing snippets, brief phone calls, and sudden transfers. Officials cite new buildings, vocational programs, and religious counseling. Closed procedures and limited access make verification difficult, while paperwork, classifications, labels, closed hearings can keep a person incommunicado, even when the cell door opens for a supervised visit. Observers in recent years note harsh sentences for online expression and a rising execution rate, a warning to anyone before security courts. Al-Ha'ir's reputation rests less on what cameras show than on what rarely sees daylight. ADX Florence is an American prison in Colorado, known as the Alcatraz of the Rocky Mountains. This is one of the most secure prisons in the world that no one has ever escaped from and houses the most dangerous criminals in the country. It opened in Florence, Colorado in 1994 as a supermax prison, meaning it has the highest security level of any other maximum security prison. The inmates are locked up separately for 23 hours a day in cells made of concrete, so they can't harm themselves. In their cells, they have a desk, a sitting area, and a bed that is also largely made of concrete. In addition, the prison contains a large number of sensors and cameras, and more than 1,400 remotely controlled steel doors. This is where the most notorious criminals are held. Think, for example, of the Mexican kingpin El Chapo, Ted Kaczynski, and many more. Between 2003 and 2009, Camp Bucca was the largest internment facility run by the U.S. military in Iraq. Over 100,000 people were held there, many without charges or trial, including Iraqis, foreign fighters, and suspected insurgents. Former detainees described it as worse than Abu Ghraib, itself infamous for abuse scandals. In early interviews, prisoners reported being forced to stand in the sun without water, using trenches as toilets, and wearing the same clothes for months. A 2003 Amnesty International report condemned heat exposure, lack of clean water, and filthy conditions. Prisoners developed chronic coughs and skin infections from the squalid tent camps. A 2004 U.S. military investigation found gross violations of international law. The Red Cross reported blindfolding, painful stress positions, and denial of contact during interrogations. One former inmate, Hassam Shaltilt, claimed he was tied like a pig and had live scorpions placed on him by guards. In 2008, 6 Marines were charged with locking inmates in pepper spray-filled cells. Most detainees lived in tents, exposed to desert temperatures exceeding 122 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius. Opened in 2002, Guantanamo once held about 680 men. After transfers, only 15 remained by early 2025, many never charged. Some have been cleared for transfer yet remain, stalled by diplomatic or security concerns. Supporters argue the camp prevented high-risk figures from returning to conflict. Critics call it a legal experiment that normalized indefinite detention, contested evidence, and secrecy. The military commissions designed for complex terrorism cases have stumbled over classification, admissibility, and the legacy of mistreatment. Timelines are measured in decades, and periodic review boards and diplomacy, more than verdicts, moved most files. The core question endures: can a system be both exceptional and lawful? For those still there, life is tightly regulated: medical visits, prayer, recreation, beneath a cloud of uncertainty about where, when, and how it ends. Each transfer requires agreements in Washington and beyond. 2 decades later, Guantanamo is more precedent than place. A reminder that choices made in crisis shape law, reputation, and lives long after the world has moved on. Located near Caracas, El Rodeo is one of Venezuela's most dangerous prisons. Designed for 1,600 inmates, it often holds over 4,000, with extreme overcrowding and gang dominance. In July 2012, a major uprising erupted when armed inmates battled over control of illegal trade networks inside. Around 25 people, including visitors, were killed. Inmates formed powerful networks with the help of corrupt guards, and unrest persisted despite reform efforts. Survivors report poor treatment, almost no medical care, and extreme heat or dampness in flooded cells. Viral videos show guards standing by while inmates fight, and reports mention hunger strikes, hostage situations, and family members detained during riots. Even food distribution is partly run by gangs. With poor ventilation, overflowing sewage, and diseases like TB and skin infections, El Rodeo is a place where freedom doesn't always mean safety. Sometimes staying inside feels just as dangerous as getting out. No prison is as overcrowded as the one at Gitarama in Rwanda, a country in East Africa. It holds thousands of prisoners who cannot even lie down or sit down because there is simply no space. 4 people have to share 1 square meter while standing. Gitarama Prison was built with a capacity of only 500 prisoners, but in reality, there are more than 7,000 people there, and dozens more are added every day. You may be wondering, how did the population here get so big? It is because of the Rwandan genocide that took place in 1994. As a result, thousands of people were imprisoned to pay for their crimes. As the years went by, the failing legal system in the country made this number even larger. This place is not known as one of the most dangerous prisons in the world for no reason. Unfortunately, the Rwandan government also does not have the resources to make the changes and can only pin its hopes on international aid. Once Uganda's only maximum security prison, Luzira, located near Kampala, holds over 8,000 inmates, nearly 5 times its intended capacity of 1,700. This extreme overcrowding has made it notorious for inhumane conditions. According to Human Rights Watch, 124 prisoners shared a space of just 26 square feet, or 8 square meters, often sleeping without mattresses, blankets, or ventilation. Sanitation and nutrition are disastrous. Prisoners mostly survive on maize porridge and beans, often in inadequate amounts. Many suffer from malnutrition, anemia, and serious illness, worsened by forced labor and the near-total lack of health care. Rebel leader Jamilu Mukulu described his cell as cramped and filled with mosquitoes, where he was confined 15 hours daily with only a bucket for a toilet. Despite having diabetes and COVID-19, he received no medical help and was physically assaulted for attempting human contact. Opposition leader Kizza Besigye has been in solitary confinement since November 2024 behind multiple locked doors, treatment that rights observers call degrading. His wife reported that he lost weight, suffered from dizziness after days without food, and was denied access to his personal doctor. Rikers is a New York City jail complex. Not a prison, but its impact is national. After years under court oversight marked by violence and preventable deaths, a federal judge in 2025 stripped the city of day-to-day control and installed a remedial manager. On paper, staffing, deployment, discipline, and compliance run through one office with deadlines. In practice, the same obstacles keep resurfacing. The population is growing, staff shortages persist, and the buildings create blind spots, broken locks, and units that can't safely open. Most people on Rikers are awaiting trial. Every misstep feels like punishment in advance. Missed hearings, canceled programs, and delayed care that turns problems into crises. Families take the ferry for short visits that vanish during lockdowns. Officers work overtime and burn out, while violence spikes. The new manager can reassign posts and standardize procedures, but cannot single-handedly shorten cases, add hospital beds, or pour concrete. Success isn't a memo, it's fewer incidents, better care, and months without funerals. Until then, Rikers remains a state of emergency, and proof that basic rights can drown on an island. Evan Prison, located in northern Tehran, was built in the 1970s under the Shah, and later expanded. It holds an estimated 15,000 prisoners, including political activists, journalists, foreign nationals, and dissidents, earning it the nickname Evan University. Conditions are harsh. Overcrowded cells packed with bunk beds, infestations, and insufficient or contaminated food. Leaked footage from 2020 and 2021 revealed widespread abuse, intimidation, and denial of medical care, even during fainting or injury. In isolation, units like Ward 209, inmates endure constant lighting, sensory deprivation, and crushing psychological pressure. Former detainees like Marina Nemat and Anousheh Ashuri reported brutal interrogations, sleep deprivation, and total disconnection from the outside world. Women suffer especially. Overcrowded quarters, lack of privacy, poor hygiene, and limited toilet or shower access. In October 2024, Kurdish activist Varshay Moradi held a 20-day hunger strike to protest coerced interrogations and lack of legal defense. In May and June 2025, prisoners demanded medical aid for Modelo Ahmadian, who needed urgent surgery but was denied release due to unaffordable bail. On June 23, 2025, part of Evan was destroyed in an airstrike, killing or injuring dozens and damaging the visitation center, clinic, and multiple wings. Bangkwang Central Prison has become known as one of the most notorious prisons in Thailand and in fact in all of Asia. The prison was built between 1927 and 1931 by order of King Rama V and was intended to be a prison for the worst criminals. In fact, it was said to be so bad that some prisoners lost their sanity over time. Most prisoners sleep in very small rooms, and things are regularly smuggled in easily. In this prison, there is also a system called chit. This system allows you to get certain food based on how much power you have. The lower class can only use the free food, which consists of a bowl of rice and some vegetables. So the upper class can get more food and also better quality. The Terrorism Confinement Center, opened in January 2023 in Tekaluka, is the largest maximum security prison in Latin America, with space for 40,000 inmates. Currently housing between 15,000 and 20,000 prisoners, most are suspected gang members. Built under President Bukele's state of emergency, the complex has been described as a concrete and steel pit designed to imprison people without officially applying the death penalty. Conditions inside are severe. Cells hold up to 80 men, stacked 4 high in metal bunk beds without mattresses. Lights stay on 24/7. Toilets and sinks offer no privacy. There is little ventilation, and daytime temperatures reach 95 degrees Fahrenheit, or 35 degrees Celsius. Inmates' gang tattoos are used by guards for segregation and punishment. The facility cost $400 million, partially funded by China, and prisoners have less than 3 square feet or 1 square meter of personal space. Inmates are confined nearly all day, with only 30 minutes of basic exercise allowed in a hallway. No visits, no letters, and no contact with lawyers or family are permitted, leading some to call it a legal black hole. As of early 2025, deported Venezuelans with no criminal records have reported spoiled food, abuse, lack of medical care, and no access to legal counsel. Critics call it Guantanamo on steroids, a place where inmates are meant to disappear and never return. Black Beach Prison, built in the 1940s under Spanish colonial rule and later used under a dictatorship, is located in Malabo and notorious for political repression and extreme neglect. Although its capacity is reportedly under 100, inmates are crammed into dark, airless cells with no natural light, fresh air, or contact with the outside world, often subjected to forced labor and horrific conditions. Medical care is almost non-existent. Wounds and illnesses go untreated. Food is scarce, and contaminated water combined with poor sanitation adds to the health risks. Under dictator Francisco Macias Nguema, political opponents were imprisoned and often eliminated, making the facility feel more like an execution site than a prison. More recently, South African oil workers have allegedly been detained without charges in retaliation by Vice President Teodoro Obiang. For many, the punishment goes beyond incarceration. Black Beach is a hidden instrument of terror. Food is minimal, forced labor is unpaid, prisoners are mistreated during transfers, and access for the UN or humanitarian groups is virtually impossible. In 2012, leaked videos from Gldani Prison No. 8 showed guards abusing detainees, sparking nationwide outrage. Streets filled with protesters, ministers resigned, and reform promises came fast. Dismissals and prosecutions followed, along with more cameras, access for external monitors, and training on use of force and rights. A decade on, authorities point to lower incident rates and clearer procedures, while organizations warn about impunity and scandal management. Overcrowding, slow pretrial timelines, and contraband continue to strain the system. And when occupancy dips, informal power creeps back. Survivors describe long-lasting trauma. Frontline staff cite fragile regimes and political turnover that makes leadership erratic. The lesson is plain. Without transparency, prisons become invisible sites of abuse, and trust, injustice, and politics erodes. Durable change looks boring. Careful audits, independent complaint channels, body cams that stay on, uninterrupted medical care, and public data. Gldani remains both a warning label and a checklist. The cameras arrived. Did the culture change too? Public pressure held for months with protests in multiple cities, and some fixes brought calm, but the structural causes stayed visible. The Granja Penal de Pavón, near Guatemala City, became infamous in the 1990s, when prison staff relinquished internal control to the inmates themselves. Inside, prisoners built their own power structures and collaborated with powerful convicts in illegal trade and smuggling. From the late 1970s until 2006, guards monitored only the perimeter while inmates ran the daily operations, businesses, and internal security. In March 1989, over 200 inmates staged a takeover, held staff hostage, and caused deaths, triggering violent crackdowns. In September 2006, the government retook control with 3,000 officers and soldiers. The raid left at least 7 inmates dead, including self-declared prison boss Luis Cepeda. Pavón also houses Guatemala's death row, where prisoners have been executed by lethal injection. The legacy of Pavón remains dark, an institution where the state ceded control to criminal factions until a dramatic and deadly military intervention. At Urga Prison in Mongolia, they have found a way to make the prison cells even more unbearable. The prison is known for locking the prisoners in wooden crates. The crates are only 1 square meter, and if you have to stay in them for a while, it is no fun. In addition, the Urga Prison is surrounded by 5-meter high pointed poles. Each crate has a small hole through which the prisoners can be fed. They spend most of their time in these crates, which are often hidden in the dark dungeons of the prison as well. Because of the way the crates are built, they cannot even sit or lie down, and they are handcuffed as well. So you could say that this is one of the worst prisons in the world that you definitely don't want to end up in. near Harare, Chikurubi. Maximum security prison in Zimbabwe is infamous for cruel conditions and extreme overcrowding. Designed for 1,300 inmates, it often holds up to 100 men per cell meant for just 30. The resulting squalor spreads diseases like tuberculosis, while food rations are minimal and malnutrition is rampant. Medical care is virtually non-existent. The cells, 30 by 13 feet or 9 by 4 meters, are suffocating, causing immense physical and psychological stress. Abuse by guards is common, and numerous human rights violations have been documented. High-profile detainees like activist Evan Mawarire and journalist Hopewell Chinono were imprisoned under harsh conditions for political reasons. In 2007, during an alleged coup plot, inmate Albert Matapo claimed to have suffered unimaginable torture. Chikurubi has had only one successful escape, carried out by criminals Chidumo and Masandeke, highlighting both its tight security and internal dysfunction, with poor hygiene, scarce clean water, and repeated outbreaks of disease. Survival. Here is a daily battle. Minutes from Bali's postcard beaches, Karabokan tells a different story. In August 2025, about 1,848 men lived in space for roughly 810, around 236% occupancy. Drug cases make up nearly 2/3 of Bali's prison population and push the blocks past their limits. Corrugated roofs turn heat into a daily stress test. A new women's prison opens in 2026, and periodic transfers bring brief relief, but the network stays taut as arrests outpace releases. Yesterday's headlines were riots and escapes. Today's wear is slower. Packed cells, few programs, and a canteen economy where small items buy big favors. Foreigners and locals share crowded dorms and navigate language, law, and day-to-day survival under the same scarcity. Courses exist, but demand dwarf slots. Landing a workshop or reading class can change a week. Healthcare and sanitation bend under numbers, making families lifelines for soap, food, and medicine at the end of long queues. Hearing dates slip, transfers stall, the heat rises, fuses shorten. Karabokan shows that policy on sentencing, bail, parole, and capacity decides whether a prison offers a path back, or just storage beside paradise. Juba National Prison, designed for 300 to 500 inmates, now holds nearly 2,800 people, including over 1,500 pretrial detainees. Among them are people with mental illness, individuals on death row, and even 4 women and 8 children detained alongside their mothers. Conditions are dire, with little to no water, minimal food, and no medical care after suppliers withdrew due to unpaid bills. Eyewitnesses report that hunger, dehydration, and disease, especially in cells made from shipping containers, have led to multiple deaths. Though these containers lie outside the official prison building, they're used for long-term detention. Amnesty International documented cases where dozens of inmates nearly suffocated after being locked in the containers for days without adequate ventilation. Even those facing serious charges are often detained indefinitely without trial, legal aid, or family contact. Oversight is non-existent, and hearings are repeatedly postponed. With starvation diets, metal box cells, and zero transparency, Juba ranks among the most dangerous prisons in the world. The Diyarbakir prison is located in southeastern Turkey and is sometimes described as the Hell of Diyarbakir. It is said to be so extreme there that it was considered by several news outlets to be one of the most notorious prisons in the world. But not because it was overcrowded or lacked basic amenities. No, there is a much darker reason for this. The leadership at the prison reportedly used their own system to punish the inmates. They use various forms of discipline that could be considered inhumane. Therefore, the punishments are too gruesome to tell you in this YouTube video. According to the former mayor of Diyarbakir, the prison also has a welcoming ritual for new prisoners that is not welcoming at all. So now the authorities are also working on plans to replace the prison with a human rights museum. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison, located in Kiambu County near Nairobi, is notorious for horrific conditions and human rights violations. Built in 1954 by British colonial authorities to house 1,400 inmates, it often holds over 3,000 prisoners. The overcrowded cells are filthy, spreading diseases like cholera, tuberculosis, and HIV. Originally used to detain Mau Mau rebels, it remains a site of suffering. Nutrition is poor, clean drinking water is scarce, and medical care is nearly non-existent. Inmates face abuse, intimidation, and exploitation, with rampant corruption by staff. The colonial-era gallows, last used in 1987, still stand, a haunting reminder of the past. In 2008, riots erupted following a contraband search, and in 2021, 3 inmates escaped with the help of prison guards, highlighting systemic issues. On its 1,200-hectare grounds, Committee functions less as a place of rehabilitation and more as a zone of punishment and despair. Built for roughly 6,000, New Bilibid has at times held 25,000 to 29,000 people, a city's density inside one fence. For 2025, officials rolled out plans to ease pressure, transfers, digital hearings to speed cases, and case file drives to clear backlogs. Informal barracks were demolished and inmate-run shops closed, yet inflow still beats outflow due to heavy pretrial detention and slow courts. Inside, mayors and informal hierarchies ration space, water, and phone time in a shadow economy around contraband and protection. Healthcare and sanitation strain under demand. Minor infections turn serious when beds and clinics are scarce. Education and work exist, but serve a fraction of need, with long wait lists and short contact hours. Families queue for hours with food or medicine the system doesn't provide. Officials point to new builds and early releases. Advocates counter that without faster procedures and more alternatives. Overcrowding just migrates from wing to wing. Bilibid's scale makes every solution partial. It's more than a prison, almost a city where governance, health, and justice collide, and doing time often starts before a verdict. Mendoza Prison in Argentina is notorious for inhumane overcrowding and underfunded infrastructure, particularly in pretrial detention units. Human rights organizations report that wings designed for 30 inmates often house 2 to 3 times that number. This overcrowding leads to respiratory illnesses, mental breakdowns, and rampant violence. Prisoners often share cells with both violent and nonviolent offenders, creating chaos under minimal supervision. Reports describe overflowing toilets, permanently sealed windows, and a lack of heating or air conditioning. In winter, temperatures drop below freezing. In summer, heat becomes unbearable without ventilation. In 2023, pretrial detainees went on a 2-week hunger strike to protest months without court hearings. Medical neglect is systemic, with untreated infections and fatal food-related illnesses. An informal barter economy thrives, where food is smuggled in via visitors or corrupt guards. Cigarettes serve as currency, and bribes buy better living conditions. Carandiru Prison in Sao Paulo was built in 1920 by Samuel das Neves to meet the new requirements of Brazil's 1890 Penal Code. At one time, it was the largest prison in South America, holding more than 8,000 inmates. The conditions in this place were so unbearable that it was known to be the biggest human rights violations the country ever recorded. The real challenge occurred at the end of the 20th century, when the prison became overcrowded and there were many more prisoners than guards. There were also frequent riots in the prison, and in addition, the prison suffered from food shortages, which led to malnutrition and other diseases. It is thought that this prison was the inspiration for the television series Prison Break. The Carandiru prison was finally demolished in 2002, and now serves as a museum that is open to the public. Known as Alligator Alcatraz, this detention center in Florida has drawn heavy criticism for its brutal conditions, especially since it holds many immigrants with no criminal record. Recent reports have raised human rights alarms. Detainees are plagued by mosquitoes, denied proper meals, and given minimal medical care. Cells are ice cold and flooded with harsh fluorescent lighting, making sleep nearly impossible. Some inmates claim they receive just 1 meal per day, occasionally infested with maggots, and no outdoor access is allowed. One account described a naked prisoner being transferred, while another was left in the blazing heat as punishment, swarmed by insects. Overcrowded cells, overflowing toilets, and abysmal hygiene conditions make life here unbearable. Its isolated location and oppressive regime have drawn comparisons to Alcatraz. Ongoing lawsuits claim prisoners are denied contact with lawyers or family. Unlike typical prisons, Alligator Alcatraz mainly holds detainees without convictions, raising serious ethical questions. Critics argue it's designed more to break people than to uphold justice. London's Belmarsh houses some of the UK's highest-risk prisoners in a fortress built for control. Recent inspections note modest safety improvements, but purposeful activity, education, work, time outdoors, remains thin, with only about 22% participating in the sample. That number shapes daily life. Long lockups, few classes, and wait lists for anything that moves people forward. Despite scanners and dogs, drugs still get in, fueling debt, intimidation, and health problems. The Independent Monitoring Board warns that life-changing opportunities remain scarce, while staffing gaps make regimes brittle and reactive. Belmarsh isn't the most violent prison, but it captures the dilemma. High security without effective reintegration becomes a revolving door. Those who reach a workshop, reading class, or therapy group describe those hours as oxygen. Too many others just circle concrete. Visits help, but are short and easily canceled by lockdowns or logistics. Without sustained investment in activities, mental health, and through-the-gate support, high security risks turning into storage behind razor wire. Safety holds the line. Reintegration decides what happens next. Topo Chico, a state prison in Monterrey, Mexico, housed over 4,000 inmates by late 2015, 35% over capacity. In February 2016, a violent riot erupted between rival Zetas factions led by LZ-27 and El Credo. Dozens died, fires broke out, and chaos lasted for hours. One guard used his weapon on an inmate and was later charged, drawing heavy criticism of prison management. Afterwards, searches revealed extreme corruption, including luxury cells for gang leaders, with king-size beds, air conditioning, refrigerators, digital TVs, and even saunas. Some inmates operated food stalls, bars, and Santa Muerte altars, demanding bribes and controlling access to basic needs. Regular inmates slept in hallways or were forced to rent cell space at extortionate prices. Gangs held keys to cell blocks, smuggled weapons, and dominated common areas, effectively taking over prison authority. The riot led to the firing and arrest of both the warden and the prison director. Camp 22, also known as the Huryong Prison Camp, is a maximum security area that is completely sealed off from the world. In fact, little is known about the prison. Information about prison living conditions comes only from former prisoners who successfully escaped. There are no photos of the camp, only some satellite images of how large the area looks. The camps in North Korea have continually grown, with now over 200,000 prisoners. One of the reasons the population in the camps continues to grow is that sometimes entire families are being detained for wrong political beliefs. This means that there are also children who are born and grow up in the prison camps. According to former guards, the conditions are very harsh. The prisoners are sometimes described as walking skeletons. Located about 124 miles or 200 kilometers from Damascus in the Syrian desert, Tadmor Prison was infamous for its inhumane conditions until its destruction by ISIS in 2015. It was used to detain opponents of Bashar al-Assad's regime and became notorious for torture and executions. The windowless cells were often pitch dark, with no beds, lighting, or sanitation, just a hole in the ground as a toilet. Mold, disease, and utter neglect were rampant, while inmates endured severe physical and psychological abuse. In the 1980s, nearly 1,000 prisoners were massacred by defense brigades, solidifying Tadmor's reputation as hell on earth. Prisoners were regularly beaten, and many died under highly questionable circumstances. Its remote desert location amplified the sense of despair. Escape was impossible. Political detainees suffered malnutrition, filth, and total abandonment. Some were forced to drink contaminated water, worsening already dire health. Though the prison was destroyed in 2015, its horrifying legacy lives on as a symbol of dehumanization and human rights abuse. South of Paris sits Europe's largest prison complex, and in recent years it's felt like a rising tide. Since 2023, France has recorded all-time highs, and around Paris occupancy hovers near 138%, with some units above 150%. That pressure flows into Fleury via transfers and long pretrial detention. On paper, there are fixes: extra beds, new wings, building schedules. In practice, watchdogs warn that overcrowding raises self-harm risk, reduces care to triage, and squeezes education and work. For staff, it's an impossible equation. More people, fewer activities, not enough hands to move everyone. For those inside, it means waiting for a shower, a doctor, a hearing that slips from a week to a month. The day fragments into 30 minutes of yard, an hour locked in, a canceled class, a postponed visit. Fleury shows that even a big system stalls when inflow outpaces outflow. Without faster case processing, more alternatives, and structural control of occupancy, Europe's largest prison remains a pressure vessel on the brink. Located on the outskirts of Cape Town, Pollsmoor Prison is infamous for severe overcrowding, holding over 8,000 inmates in a facility built for only 4,000. In one pre-trial detention cell meant for 19 men, inspectors found 86 prisoners packed in like logs, with just one toilet and a single cold shower. One inspector described the air as suffocating and dense, contributing to the spread of tuberculosis, skin infections, and other diseases due to filthy mattresses and poor hygiene. Inmates in pre-trial sections often wait months or even years for a hearing, frequently without legal representation. Psychological pressure is intensified by the dominance of the numbers gang, 26s, 27s, 28s, which controls food distribution, punishes dissenters, and fosters violence. In 2015, the Constitutional Court ruled that the conditions were unconstitutional, calling for reduced overcrowding, better care, and more inmate exercise. While the number of inmates has slightly decreased, fundamental issues remain. TB rates are still 5 times higher than in the general population. Notably, Nelson Mandela was once briefly imprisoned here. Qarchak Island has earned its reputation as the Alcatraz of Russia, where the country's most dangerous criminals are held. The prison is located on a small island called Ogeni Ostrov. Like Alcatraz, Qarchak Island is a place where you can't just escape. If inmates try to dig, they end up in the water, and if they try to swim away, they are sure to be spotted by the guards. Aside from the freezing temperatures brought on by the surrounding lake, conditions inside the prison are made even more unbearable by the lack of facilities and extremely strict rules that some consider inhumane. Inmates are locked up for 23 hours a day and are only allowed 2 visits a year. There are also no toilets or proper facilities for washing. A prison psychologist who works here named Svetlana even says that this place is very bad for people. The first few months, the prisoners adjust with the rules, but after a few years, they don't care anymore. Black Dolphin Prison, officially Penal Colony Number 6, is located in Soledetsk near the Kazakh border and is considered one of Russia's most infamous high-security institutions. Originally established in 1745, it was transformed in 2000 into a facility for inmates serving life sentences. The nickname comes from a black dolphin sculpture at the entrance, created by an inmate. Around 700 prisoners are held here, convicted of heinous crimes, collectively responsible for over 3,500 victims. Inmates live in extreme isolation, locked in small 6.5 by 11.5 feet or 2 by 3.5 meters cells for 23 hours a day, with concrete furniture and only a narrow slit for a window. Movement within the facility is done blindfolded to prevent memorizing escape routes, while guards check in every 15 minutes. Privacy does not exist. Exercise is allowed only in small cages outside. The harsh conditions, including total isolation and intense psychological pressure, have sparked international human rights concerns. In 2016, a non-life sentence inmate escaped from a lower security section, but no lifer has ever broken out. Black Dolphin's reputation as an inescapable living hell makes it a waking nightmare where death is the only release. Documentaries like those by National Geographic capture its chilling atmosphere, featuring inmates like Vladimir Nikolaev, a known cannibal, as disturbing examples. In Cairo's Torah complex, the Scorpion Akrab wing is built for separation. Long corridors, sealed doors, and a design that shuts people off from the outside world. Former detainees and lawyers describe isolation, punishment cells, and visiting bans that can last for months. When visits do happen, they're often behind glass and strictly timed. Healthcare is the Achilles heel, with reports of delayed treatment, denied hospital transfers, and medication withheld as a control measure. Authorities dismiss the criticism as security-driven, while independent access remains limited, and monitors say complainants risk reprisals. The architecture betrays the aim: silence first, everything else later. Where the light is constant and mental health erodes quickly, small privileges, books, a brief phone call, become lifelines. The message reaches beyond the walls. The state can shape space, time, and speech so thoroughly that due process fades to a shadow. Until transparent oversight and medical guarantees are standard, Scorpion remains synonymous with disappearing by detention. Have you ever been inside a prison? Let us know in the comments. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos we've made, click one on the screen or take a look at the channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.